Ladies, listen, what you need to do right now is go get your husband, go get your boyfriend, go get your teenagers and set them in front of the television. And then you need to leave the room because this program is for men only. We're so glad you joined us for our program for men only. I am so excited about today's program. I'm excited about where we're at because, with our program, our design is to speak to the eagle on the inside of men. We believe that there's an eagle and a turkey on the inside of every man, and usually it's the one that gets talked to that rises to the ascendancy. But what we want to do is talk to the eagle on the inside of men. And you need to sometimes go to some places that maybe bring out that eagle, that you see men that sacrifice, men that gave their lives, men that, that did something that was greater than themselves, and they went to help others. And we're in one of those settings. And I'm here with Ron Morris, and we're on LST 393. It's in Muskegon. It's a museum. LST stands for Landing Ship Tank, right?
Or long, slow target.
Our long, slow target, okay. But this ship was in World War II. It was at various landings. Now, Ron, you're one of the curators or one of the volunteers here that works with this museum. Right. So tell us a little bit about the ship.
Well, we started this ship, putting it into perspective of making it into a museum about 12 years ago. This ship here itself was at D-Day on Normandy Beach, or Omaha Beach in Normandy. It was there the first day. The tank deck that you're standing on held 28 Sherman tanks, plus other equipment on the top. This made trips also to Sicily, Salerno for the landings down there, and this ran back and forth from France to England 30 times.
Wow. So
hauling tanks, troops, and also bringing in wounded and German prisoners.
So this ship, now on D-Day, June 6, 1944, landed on Omaha Beach.
Yes, it did.
Which was the bloodiest beach of the 5 beaches there. Right. Now, I've been to Normandy. I've been there about 4 times. I actually led a tour on D-Day tour. But I can remember walking Omaha Beach, and that's one of the most sacred pieces of sacred ground.
That's what I hear. I've never had the privilege.
Oh, my. And then the cemetery above there is something else to see.
Yeah, the French take pretty good care of it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. But, men there sacrificed. And many times they sacrificed, not just necessarily for country, but for their fellow soldier. They did things to help one another and sacrificed to win a war.
Sure. I mean, you look at what happened over there. We lost a lot of good men, especially out of Muskegon. We lost over 400 killed or MIA in Europe alone, and in the Pacific too. So it was a war, I would probably say the last justified war in my opinion. But that's why we're here. We honor all wars, all veterans, Korean War, Vietnam War, the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, World War II, and then we have our wall of honor for the missing in action and killed in Vietnam. 60 of them from Muskegon County.
Well, Ron,
so them are our heroes.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Because I think maybe at this time, maybe in our culture, we don't honor this as much as we should. We don't honor the sacrifice that men and women made to keep us free.
No, not even close. We don't honor them at all. And everybody, they say, well, the flag marches by. You watch some of the people, the respect isn't there anymore like it used to be.
Yes, sir.
You see it. And we have school kids come down here. Oh, I didn't even know about that. I've had school teachers asking me about D-Day. Thought, you got to be kidding.
Really? Wow.
So this is why we're here. Keep it alive. Keep people knowing that, yes, we did have a lot of people that are heroes that never came home.
That sacrificed.
Sacrificed.
They were men and women. But we're talking to men. They are men that sacrificed for something greater than themselves.
Yes, they did.
So listen, stick around. We're going to come back on. I'm going to have Troy Love. He's a history teacher, and he knows about this stuff as well. But we're going to talk to men and talk to men about sacrificing for something greater than yourself. Stick around. We'll be back in a moment. Once again, we're here at LST 393, which is basically LST stands for Landing Ship Tanks. I think they had another name for it, but they actually had tanks on this ship that landed at Omaha Beach on D-Day, June 6, 1944, which was thousands of men gave their lives that day, and it was many men sacrificed for their country and for their, especially their fellow soldiers. And we want to talk about sacrifice today because, you know, men, this is a program for you. This program is called For Men Only, and we want to speak to the eagle on the inside of men. We believe that there's an eagle or a turkey on the inside of men, and it's the one that gets talked to that usually rises to the ascendancy. And I'm here with Troy Love. Troy, you're a teacher at Whitehall High School. You teach history,
yes.
So you understand some of the history of this ship as well.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, Troy, I believe one of the things that brings that eagle out in a man is when a man is willing to sacrifice and does something that is greater than himself. Now, if we could start off now, when you think about sacrifice, how would you define, if you were to define that word sacrifice, how would you define that?
I would define it as just simply laying down your life for another person.
Okay.
There's not too many of us in this day and age that are called to actually die for another person, to physically die. But whenever we lay down our life, maybe our own agenda, maybe our own time, and we set that aside for somebody else, for a brother, for a wife, for a child, I think that's sacrifice.
Okay. Now we met because my son, one of my sons was in your class, in history class at Whitehall High School.
Yeah.
And you had a gentleman come in, and my son, one day we're just sitting at the dinner table, and I was asking, what are you learning in your classes? And I said, well, what are you learning in history? And he said, we're learning about World War II stuff. And I said, really? I said, well, what portion are you on? And he said, well, I think we're studying D-Day now. I said, really? And he said, I think tomorrow we're having somebody come in our class that landed on the beaches on D-Day. I said, you are? Because I'm a World War II buff. And I remember I said, what's your teacher's name? And he said, Mr. Love. And I looked up your phone number and called you up.
Right.
I said, I promise I'll be nice. I'll be quiet. I'll sit in the back. But can I come to your class? And that was an example. Share that story, that individual story of sacrifice.
Well, what an honor to have known a man named Dick Prosch. A dear friend, and like I said, he would come into my classes and speak, and he captivated the kids. It was inspiring to hear, it was inspiring to see, and unfortunately, Dick died about 4 years ago. And but I tell you what, this man's spirit, and him as a hero and somebody sacrificed, wow, what a story. And Mr. Prosch was on the beaches that morning. He came in a little bit late. He was about 9:30. And his job was a spotter. His job was to give the coordinates to a battleship so that they could blast those guns.
Okay, now
right
let's go. But they landed, what, about 6:30 in the morning on D-Day?
I think they were supposed to. I think it was a little bit later than that.
Okay.
But he came in.
And he was on the third wave coming in.
Yeah.
All right, about 9:30.
But nonetheless, I mean, those German guns, they were dug in that beachhead. And these men were under heavy fire all day long. And so Dick Prosch, as the Higgins boat, it comes out and the men go scurrying up on, and it's just mass chaos. They're under heavy fire. And the Nazis just mowing our men down. And amidst all the chaos, he was able to find some cover. He and about 30 or 40 other men. And a lot of their leadership had already been killed. And so they had to make a decision. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And these young men made the decision, we've got to get up this beach and we've got to take out those guns. And so one at a time, these men began to go up. Now the beaches were heavily mined, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
They were prepared for this attack. So they're heavily mined. So what would happen is one of the men would run up on the beach and would hit a mine. Lose his legs, lose his life. Next man would go up, hit another mine. And this went on, and it went on, man after man. And then what happened was there were two other men that had white strips about as wide as paper towel, and they would run up alongside these men, and they would run that tape up to the point where the last man blew up. The last mine blew up. And that was an indication to everybody behind that it was safe up to that point. And so it went on, and it went on. all day long. And by the end of the afternoon, Dick Prosch is standing up on top of that beachhead. All the German guns had been taken out. And he's standing back, and he's looking back at the beach. And like he could only describe it, what he saw was water that was blood red. Thousands of bodies scattered out on this beach, mangled metal, fire, smoke. He said, I've never been to hell, but I got to believe that's what hell looks like. But then he says, as I look back on that beach, the most outstanding thing in my mind was the sight of 3 paths, those white strips going up that beach. And he said, you know what that was? Those were literally paths of human sacrifice. And you think about it, those men and the decision that they made. I try to put myself in that story, Tim.
Oh my.
And I'm in that line of men going up. And the man in front of me hits a mine. And I'm looking, and we're only halfway up that beach, and I'm next in line. What goes through your mind? And what was going through those minds, the minds of those young men? I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that it was important enough for them to say, this is willing to sacrifice, to lay down my life for. That's powerful stuff. I'm thankful for those men on those beaches.
So in some form, sacrifice is really giving of yourself, your time, your energies, in some form, like their lives, for something greater than themselves.
Yeah.
Because it was for the next guy, or, you know, because they had to knock out those guns because they were killing men on the beach. Bye. We already get a little stirred up. We're going to be back in a moment and talk some more about sacrifice for men.
Hi, this is Tony Roy with Men of Honor, and I'm coming to you today to talk to you about Men of Honor. Men of Honor is a program for youth ages 11 to 17 where we mentor and train world changers. One of the things that we teach the young men is about loyalty. It seems that loyalty is an attribute that's missed in our generation. I think the divorce rate is better than 50% because men are not loyal. I want to challenge you today to show loyalty. What a safe environment it creates for everyone around us when they know that our hearts are faithful and loyal. Be loyal. Be loyal to your wife. Be loyal to your word. Be loyal to God today. Be a man of honor.
Once again, we're here at LST 393, and we were talking about, boy, Troy, you got me stirred up just listening to that story, because I know I've read that story.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know this is a bloody movie and it's got some language in it, but Saving Private Ryan, you know, I sat down with my sons and we watched that movie together, you know, and especially some of those scenes on D-Day, on some of them I had read about, but to see guys and the Higgins boat, that front thing come down, and then guys just being mowed down coming out, but they still went forward.
Still went.
And, you know, there's something about seeing it, and I couldn't imagine what it was like being there. But then the stories of sacrifice, the stories, because one of the things I love our military, and one of the stories of our military that made the difference, and they actually said the difference between the United States military and the German military is the German military where you followed orders, you did what you were told, and for the most part they could only function when they had an officer there. But one of the things they said about the United States military is our men were told, you adapt, you do whatever you need to, you know, and it was men like the individual you were talking about, some others that got off of that beach and that were willing to sacrifice. You know, nobody told them they had to, but they said, we've got to do something to stop these guns because they're killing men. And I think of a different war, Alvin York, he was the Medal of Honor winner, most decorated man in World War I, and he was actually a pacifist. He did not want to kill anybody, but he said he killed numerous men in one battle, but he said the reason I did it was They were killing my men. They were killing other people. I had to take them out. I had to stop them. Now, most of us, in talking about that, I love those kind of stories. They do something on the inside of you, and I think that they inspire, they call for something, because I think every man wants to be a hero. Every man wants to save the day, save the lady, save the world, do something, and some men would say, I think I'd be willing to sacrifice to run up the hill. I think I'd be willing to do that. But I think sometimes that desire for sacrifice, sometimes guys like to sacrifice on big things, but sometimes sacrifice is not so much the big things, it's sometimes the daily things that where men have to sacrifice on small things, and sometimes think we do it on the big things. But what are maybe some areas in a man's life that maybe that aspect of sacrifice, maybe not running up a hill and possibly getting your legs blown off to save a bunch of people's lives on a beach, but what are some practical daily areas that a man might need to sacrifice for?
Tim, I think one of the great illusions today is that we're kind of trained to believe that this world is a playground. That this world, it's just here to entertain us. This world is not a playground. This world is a battleground. And as soon as a man understands that, and it is battle every single day. We're going to war. And there's all kinds of, on D-Day, it was the Nazis that were dug in. Nowadays, there's all kinds of other things being fired at us, all kinds of bullets. We're facing divorce, we're facing pornography, we're facing addictions, we're facing all kinds of things in our daily lives. These bullets are coming at us. This is a battleground that we're on. And so the question is, are we going to step up and be that hero? Are we going to sacrifice? And in all of our conversations so far today, whenever we bring up that word sacrifice, I don't think of a self-centered person. I think of somebody that is others-centered, fighting and battling for something greater than themselves. And so I worry sometimes that we tend to become self-centered as opposed to focusing on others. And you want to talk about practical. How about fighting for a marriage? How about fighting for a relationship with your child? It is hard work. It is difficult. It's ugly sometimes. But a warrior that we are, we're going to step up, and we are going to fight, and we are going to defend those things that we love and that we cherish. That's what men do.
Yeah. Well, I think in warfare, I heard guys that couldn't stand each other maybe out of the battle, but man, they will do everything they can to save each other's lives, or to share, the last drink of water in their canteen or something where they've been in battle. And sometimes men are willing to sacrifice there. But sometimes going through the battles, I've been married 32 years, and I've had some good years and I've had some rough years. And sometimes even in those rough years, are you willing to sacrifice? And I like what you said. I think the opposite of sacrifice, or the reason some people don't sacrifice, is because they get so me-centered. And when you're me-centered, you're looking at what somebody else can do for you, rather than what you can do for somebody else. And now in terms of sports, and I know I've read even stuff in terms of warfare, there's sometimes a game changer, somebody that can go in and change the momentum or do something that changes what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I think on the inside of men, there's that ability, there's that eagle someplace on the inside of men to be a game changer. And sometimes in a marriage, the game changer is stop thinking about yourself and what can you do for your wife. What can you do to be a game changer, to change the momentum? Maybe the momentum is going against you and is going against your relationship. But sometimes it takes the man that thinks different, that thinks on a different level, that isn't just thinking about himself, but does and sacrifices something to be a game changer, to change the momentum in their relationship. Now listen, we're going to be back in a few moments. We're going to talk some more about how a man can sacrifice and be that eagle, be that champion that God designed you to be. back here on LST 393 in Muskegon, Michigan, and I'm here with Troy Love. And Troy, we're talking about sacrifice and how really, and we're talking about World War II stuff and how, in a sense, men's sacrifice became a game changer. I mean, in a sense, if I could say it changed the momentum. And I know in sports, you know, they talk about a sixth man in basketball that can come in and change the momentum. And we're talking about that men, you know, in relationships, because that's the most valuable things in life are not things. They're relationships. They're people. And I found out, you know, that sometimes in relationships, some relationships go great and sometimes they go through difficult times. And that might be with a spouse or a girlfriend or kids or even maybe an employer or something, or even a friend. Sometimes relationships go through things. And a man that is willing to sacrifice and not just think of himself. What you said was so good, that the opposite maybe of sacrifice is just thinking about yourself. But I believe a man can be a game changer in any relationship if he'll think right.
You know, we're on this LST that saw action at D-Day. D-Day was an invasion that was a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It changed the whole tide of war. And I want to be the game changer in my son's life. I want to be the game changer in my wife's life. You know, every Veterans Day, I have a list of about 6 men that I call. Really? I call them every single year on Veterans Day. And I wish them a happy Veterans Day. And then the second thing out of my mouth is, thank you for your service. Thank you. Isn't that what we say?
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. Isn't that what game changing is? Service. It's not about getting, it's about giving. So my question to men would be, how are you serving? What's your service? Is it possible that your wife, that your sons could come up to you today and say, Dad, thank you for your service? Putting yourself and your own desires aside and focusing on them. And if we are men that are interested in being servant leaders, because those are the greatest leaders, are the ones that serve the best.
Yeah.
We will begin to come up with ways that I can better serve those that are near and dear, that I cherish in my life, just like those men who cherish freedom, cherish this nation, and were willing to serve, to give everything they had for it. I believe the same is true in our families. There are some practical things, maybe we can get to those, but I believe we have it inside us. As servant leaders, as game changers, we study our families and we know how to serve.
Well, this is a program for men.
Yeah.
I appreciate the ladies, but this is a program for men. Men, I believe the one that is supposed to sacrifice in the family, many times, unfortunately, in most cases, it's everybody, when they think of sacrifice, they think of the mom. You know, she'll sacrifice them. But I believe it should be the man. It should be the man that is willing to sacrifice. You know, the stories of the men that work extra hours just to make a little extra money to help their kids go to college or something like that. Or, you know, the man that, you know, his wife's going through a rough time and, you know, might sacrifice and take her on a date or take her someplace he doesn't want to go. I mean, that may be simple or, you know, just, but even looking at what can I do to bless or help my wife, or the dad that might have a daughter or a son that rather that they may be a mess and maybe something might be going wrong with them. But to what degree are you willing to sacrifice? It's easy to talk and say this kid's bad and this kid's horrible, but there's a side of how far as a father. Fathers, you are the one designed. You're the one to be the hero. You're the one to storm the beach. You're the one designed to do that. And sometimes it might just be, you know, now I didn't have boys do bad or what have you, but, you know, I just wanted a relationship with my boys. So I got up for 2 years, my sons, and I'd make breakfast for them every morning before they'd go to school. And it wasn't just, you know, throw some cereal on the table. It was eggs and bacon and potatoes and you know, pancakes and French toast and stuff like that, because I wanted a relationship. It meant me getting up. It wasn't my wife. I got a great wife, but it was me, because I wanted to do that simple sacrifice just to have a relationship. You know, as those boys hit those teenage years, sometimes they don't like dad as much. But sometimes, dads, you have to sacrifice and go that extra mile, if I could say it that way, to be the game changer in your kids' lives, to be a game changer in your wife's life. Maybe that whatever that relationship is, it takes that thing called sacrifice to make the difference. And man, you've got what it takes on the inside of you. And I'll say this, I'm a praying man. And I believe in claiming God's scriptures and promises.
Sure.
One of the promises I claim more than anything else is a scripture found in James chapter 1 verse 5. It says, if you're in the midst of a battle, you may not have bullets flying, like natural bullets, but some of the bullets, you were talking about, just problems, divorce, pornography, those type of things, alcohol, drugs, those things fine. It says if you're in the midst of a battle, if any man lacks wisdom, that means you don't know what to do and you need wisdom. It says if you'll ask of God, He'll give you that wisdom, and not just a little bit. He'll give you a lot. Man, I feel like there might be some guys watching. You go, I'm not much of a praying man. Well, I'm going to tell you as a preacher, I'll tell you maybe a scripture you need to pray is James 1:5. God, give me wisdom. Please, I need wisdom. And you might be amazed at what God gives you. And sometimes when men do pray, they're looking for God to change the individual that they're having the problem with. But sometimes you're the game changer. Mm-hmm. You're the element. You're the key to changing that thing. And sometimes what you need to do is pray and say, God, give me wisdom. And God will give you wisdom on what you can do to sacrifice to be the game changer, maybe in your marriage or with your children. The greatest game changer there ever was, His name was Jesus Christ.
That's right.
He went to Calvary's cross to change the game, to change your life. And if you let Him into your life, as simple as calling out His name, saying, Jesus, come into my life and save me, He'll be a game changer in your life and make you the man that you were designed to be. Thank you for joining us today on For Men Only.